Can anybody tell me the most common renewal error? Signing a bond. Very seldom do people sign a bond. A lot of renewals get rejected for that, and it's just a matter of a quick signature, bottom left corner.
Excuse me, what's the authority's position on electronic signatures on applications?
Electronic, are you asking about electronic signatures?
Yes.
The new system will allow it, and we will allow it at this point. Class change applications and alterations. If you're filing a class change client, there's no need to file an alteration with it. If something's changing, you're adding a bar, you're adding an outside area, we'll take all that in at the time that the class change is filed. Just make sure that you provide us with the correct diagrams so that we can see that you're adding something new, and maybe provide a cover letter to that extent that we need to look for that something's being changed.
Can you say that again? So if we're filing an application for a premise already licensed and we make minor changes to the floor plan, you can do it at the
You can do it at filing the class change is enough. We'll take it from that. You don't have to file an alteration as well. Yes?
What's the turnaround period on class changes?
They are the same as any other application. Method of operation applications. We get this a lot where you're filing it because you don't want to be a bar anymore. You want to be a restaurant. You don't want to be a restaurant anymore. You want to be a bar. That is not the application for this. Method of operations is to add music, dancing, security guards. That's all that's for. You can't change the class that you operate under by filing method of operation hours.
And can you just explain why you're talking about two licenses that are under two separate statutes? If you're going to go from a restaurant to a bar, we have to get a new application.
With regard to, I've been told, liquor stores, the change in method of operation application really doesn't, when you look at it, it doesn't apply to liquor stores. If I have some change going on in the liquor store, no manager to hiring a manager. Now, I understand, from the statute, notify the state liquor authority, provide them with a manager's personal questionnaire. Because there's a change in the application itself. I'm checking off no managers to manager. But again, and I've been told some time ago when I inquired about this, liquor stores really don't fit under the change in method of operation application that exists, which really is for on-premises licenses.
I also see a lot of applications where we're getting duplicate documents, photos. Sometimes I get 3 sets. We only need 1 set of photos, 1 set of documents. I believe back in the day you were supposed to send sets. We no longer need that, and because of the storage for scanning things in, just 1 set of photos would be great. We're just throwing out the other set, so you might save some money there with shipping in the end with the photos. The abandonment process. We get applicants that ask once they file, the previous guy's no longer there, and you send an abandonment notice. That takes 2 weeks. If your client can get a letter from the landlord stating that ABC liquor store has moved out, they abandoned the premise on this date, we'll accept that and we'll just inactivate the current licensee there. It saves your client time, saves us time, and it's immediate. If your client has not filed yet and you want to start the abandonment process, that is an enforcement issue. You should be contacting enforcement to go out and make sure that they're no longer operating there. I won't do anything with it at that point if we don't have a pending application. Make sure the copies you are making are legible and they're of a font that someone else can read. We've had a bunch of documents come in where I literally have to get my magnifying glass out to read it, and it shouldn't be like that. You should be making the copies legible. Also, we don't take double-sided. All our applications need to be scanned in, and it is a pain for somebody to constantly change over the scanner, and what happens is they don't change over the scanner when they should, so now you either don't get the second page, or now you've got a bunch of blank pages in there. Applicants should not be scheduling grand openings or accepting dates for private functions unless they have the license in hand or they have a conditional approval letter in hand and they know for a fact that they will be able to obtain that license before the date that they intend to open or provide a wedding venue for someone. We get a lot of calls and emails that, hey, I've got a wedding coming up October 17th and I don't have my liquor license. Well, you shouldn't be making plans to host parties or have a grand opening until you know that you can get that liquor license in time for that.
And on that point, I realize that most of you do advise your people of that. In fact, I've seen myself that you advise them of that, and frequently they don't listen to you, but I would just ask that you speak louder or whatever the case may be. But it really doesn't help the situation when that occurs.
The last topic I want to talk about is restaurants and taverns. I see a lot of applicants that apply as a restaurant, and then we have to switch them to a tavern after they've applied. Either they don't have a kitchen, or they don't have a menu that substantiates a restaurant. A tavern should be sandwiches, items like that. A restaurant should be more entree-like meals, not things that you put in between two slices of bread or a bun or a panini. The definition of a restaurant, it says right in the definition that the availability of sandwiches, soups, and other foods, whether fresh, pre-cooked, frozen, is not deemed in compliance with the requirement. They need to have substantial food, and sandwiches and paninis and wraps would not be it.
What about hamburgers?
That's questionable.
I think we have to, some of these things I think we have to look at by case basis is to determine what it is. I mean, generally, Amy's correct in our definitions between the difference between restaurants and taverns. I mean, I think there are some applications that lend themselves to be more one than the other, and I think it's, from a common sense perspective, we have to consider all of that, the application, and not just the menu itself, but generally, those are the expectations that we have when it comes to differentiating from the restaurant.
Because given how difficult it is to reverse course, once we've looked at like a substantial hamburger menu and we consider it to be a restaurant, by the time it gets to you and you think otherwise, we've lost a lot of time. That it would be helpful if there was a way to speak with you ahead of time and
to
give
that
you
point,
a menu.
Absolutely. I mean, I think any time that you have questions about the application that you're going to present to us, or if you have funky situations, because obviously we know those things happen all the time in this industry, come talk to us. I mean, I think I make myself pretty available so far to people I've worked with. Feel free to reach out to me. If you have a question that needs to be addressed, if you're not sure about something before you put the application in, shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to work with you on the situation to come up with a solution prior to that happening. Because again, going back to what we were talking before, we are trying to limit the amount of amendments and changes on these applications as much as possible because it slows us down, and it slows your clients down, the process down. So as much as you can, if you have questions about scenarios, things that you are iffy about, please send me an email and we'll work on a solution.
And that's been my message for the 4+ years I've been here, is that if you have a situation, and I can't tell you how many meetings I've had going through people's menus to figure out if they're a restaurant or not, or does this account for, do these microwavable pizzas, are they enough for a tavern? That remains, that policy remains. We are open to sit down, particularly, and I ask you to sit down, particularly on issues that are not clear in the law, because you're eventually going to end up sitting down with us anyway. And as Adam said, it's much better to do that before you apply, because maybe you can tweak something for us that will help us fit it into something that you hadn't even thought about. So we try to do what we can with the law as it is, and we all know what we're dealing with as far as what the law is.